Hello, gorgeous soul. Welcome to Susie's Enchanted Crossroads. I'm Susie, and this podcast helps you navigate your journey through the crossroads by taking a deeper look into witchcraft and spirituality. So settle in, grab your beverage of choice, and let's get this episode going. Whoa, hello, gorgeous souls. How are we doing out there? How are you feeling? How is this eclipse season energy jiving with you? I hear you. I really hear you. And we're in Aries season. This energy is just hitting everybody differently, but more or less the same. I have had to take a few deep breaths here and there and really have to recenter myself. Overall, I'm feeling pretty good. And it wasn't until recent that I was like, okay, here we go. Mercury retrograde, eclipse season. We're about to have an eclipse, April 8th. Okay, here we go. Here we go. So, in kind of brainstorming what I was going to talk about today on the podcast, I was gonna talk about something completely different. And then it hit me. I'm like, hello, talk about the retrograde. Because I do get a few questions. What is a retrograde? Why is it always Mercury? Um, why, like, why are we always blaming Mercury? Yada, yada, yada. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to touch on this. Plus, when we had the lunar eclipse, I had a few questions about working with eclipse energy as well. So I just thought, you know what? Let's go ahead and dive into this. I'll get ahead before we hit our solar eclipse. I actually dusted off a few old notes here that I was like, damn, this is good stuff, along with some new stuff. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Let's start off with Mercury retrograde. Let's 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 start diving in a little bit more on that. So I'm sure you have heard, oh no, it's Mercury retrograde. I love hearing the different things. Mercury's in the microwave. You have to align your chanclas. It's just funny things now on social media when it comes to Mercury retrograde. And it's always the buzz, right? It's of all the planetary aspects, that is the one that gets the most attention when it hits retrograde, because it always feels like, oh, we just had Mercury retrograde, and before you know it, we have another one. So actually, Mercury retrogrades happen about 3 to 4 times in a year because Mercury is the closest to us. And then they don't last as long as other planets further away from us. So that's why it's such a big thing. I know some people like to blame Mercury retrogrades for some of their issues, and I shouldn't just say Mercury retrogrades. It's, sometimes people like to have an excuse for their bad behavior. It's like, oh, it's because, oh, since we're in Aries season, I'll go ahead and just use Aries. Well, it's because I'm in Aries, so of course I'm just hot-headed and I just lose my temper right away. To an extent, okay, but are you being an asshole? Like, when it comes down to it, are you being a jackass? Because you can't be blaming the stars for your bad behavior. And the same thing goes for the retrogrades, especially Mercury retrograde, because it does get a lot of attention here for when things go wrong, when things go awry. So honestly, we can't be blaming the stars for every single thing. So for 2024, we did have Mercury retrograde from December 13th of 2023 into January 1st, 2024, right? And then we are currently, when you hear this, in Mercury retrograde. So in 2024, April 1st to April 25th, and you'll never guess, my computer just glitched. Oh my gosh. Oh, and it's going to be in the sign of Aries. The next Mercury retrograde will be August 4th through August 28th. So it's going to be in an earth sign and it ends in the fire sign of Leo, excuse me. Mercury retrograde, am I right? And the last Mercury retrograde of 2024 will be November 25th to December 15th in the fire sign of Sagittarius. So, okay, Susie, that's awesome. But what is Mercury retrograde? So let's go ahead and take just a few steps back and let's talk about, besides Mercury, the planet, what about Mercury, the god? Okay, so in Roman religion and in mythology, he is the god of financial gain, commerce, eloquence, messages, okay, communication, including divination, travelers, boundaries, luck, trickery. And he also serves as a guide to the souls to the underworld as the messenger of the gods. So now you can kind of see how Mercury, when it goes retrograde, why things in communication happen to go a little off the handles, right? A little awry. So when we're in a retrograde, we really want to take our time and really take kind of retreat if you know what I'm saying. This is where you need to double, triple check your work. And also depending what astrological sign Mercury retrograde is in. Like right now, we are in a fire sign. So sometimes if things may get a little heated, we might take things that someone said, and I don't want to say out of context, but maybe it was the way they said it, the way that you may take things or interpret it in your way. So any form of communication, and nowadays we have so much. We have texting, obviously, social media, whatever you're posting, whatever you're seeing, and the comments you are reading or the comments you are leaving. Did I say email already? Can't even remember. I think I did. Email, your social media. Um, all of these, it, sending your text, even when you are talking on the phone, writing something out, all those forms of communication, we really want to make sure that we are saying what we are meaning and it can't be kind of twisted around. And Mercury actually has essentially the same aspects as Hermes. So the winged shoes, carrying the caduceus, the herald staff with the two intertwined snakes. That was Apollo's gift to Hermes. But poor Mercury, right, with his trickery and his tricks, really having a good old time when it goes retrograde. So, here we go. When we say a planet is going retrograde, it's essentially saying that from the naked eye, it looks like the planet is moving backwards in orbit. Okay, so it's an optical illusion. It makes it look as if it is literally moving backwards. And because it's particularly close to the Earth, that's why we see it 3 to 4 times a year moving that way. So if you think about it, if you're going on the freeway and you're driving, and then all of a sudden, the car next to you where you've been, in the same, going the same amount of speed and then they brake, how they go backwards, even though they stopped, it looked like they were going backwards because you're moving forward. That's essentially almost the same thing. So during the Mercury retrograde, the planet moves in a slower motion than the Earth, leading to a moment of reflection and contemplation, right? Where this is a time where we start thinking about our decisions and our patterns. Okay. Now, the kicker is this particular retrograde is happening not only in Aries, but right when we had the lunar eclipse and we're going to have the solar eclipse, right? We're having the solar eclipse April 8th. So right now, you may be feeling a lot of confusion moving forward. What path do I take? You might be at the crossroads. And right now is very important to sit with our thoughts and really begin to ground ourselves, right? We talked about grounding in the last episode. And really sitting with what our passion is, where it lies. Taking time with decision making. So Mercury retrograde, it affects travel, communication, as we said, technology. And I'm not sure if you've heard this, but it also brings back, I don't want to say just, your exes, but it brings people who you had released, right? So this could be friends, family, obviously a significant other. And it brings even more confusion into the mix, right? Maybe even heightened in stress. Because why? Why come back? Why even be here, knock it on my door? You know what I mean? But it's because it's time for reflection, retrograde reflection. And to really put our foot down in saying, no, this was a boundary, right? This is a boundary that I set. I'm not just going to allow you to come in and quote unquote whisper sweet nothings in my ear, promise me the moon and the stars, and then we go through the cycle all over again. So that is Mercury retrograde, a little bit of that. And the reason people really blame Mercury retrograde for a lot of things is because it messes with our technology, which we use all the time, and it rules all types of communication. So when you're communicating with someone, you are talking, right? You are speaking, but it also includes listening from the other person, right? The other party. So it's because Mercury also rules formal contracts and agreements, right? Important documents. When you have to do or deal with important documents like this or contracts, people really advise that you don't do it during a retrograde. However, I mean, life doesn't stop, right? But this is the time that you go through with a fine-tooth comb and you want someone to check your work. And I know some of you are like, I can do this myself, but I'm telling you, really, really, really dig your heels in. You need to ground and read it out loud even. That way you can catch any mistakes, any typos, or anything maybe you needed to add. So, transportation is also with shipping and travel. So you want to make sure that, if you're traveling during a retrograde, just plan. I mean, you should always plan for the worst anyway, right? Everybody hates a lost bag, but that way you have a carry-on that maybe has all of the essentials you may need just in case. But this would be a good time where you just double check. double check those reservations. You know what I mean? But it just, this is what happens when, Mercury decides to take a little nap in this retrograde, right? It's resting, it's slowing down. And when that happens, that it's up to us to also kind of really retreat and slow down. Where we're in this hustle and bustle, this is a time where we really should make, drastic important moves. But I mean, again, life is life, and you can't you can't just stop when you got to do things. But this is a time where we really take this is a time where we take our time, where we retreat, where we refocus and put things in another maybe go into another perspective. I don't necessarily see this, but some people do, and they see a week before and after retrograde, people can feel the shadow period of the retrograde, where they can start feeling and sensing that things are going a little awry, something is a little off. And that's just like preparing you, like, hey, miscommunications, might just abound here. So we want to make sure, if you're feeling this energy before the retrograde or after the retrograde, that's the Mercury retrograde shadow period. We're feeling it coming, right? Now, for myself, I really haven't felt Mercury retrograde as harsh. Like, thank goodness, right? Um, as some people have been really, really impacted by Mercury retrograde. I was born during a Mercury retrograde, so I don't know if I'm not that I have immunity because I have a story for you, but I feel like or maybe I'm just used to taking things slowly anyway. But I do have mishaps here and there, and silly things like I just had this printout over here. Why all of a sudden would I put it in with another folder and then be looking for it? And then when I slow down and sit and I'm really going through things, I'd be like, oh, here it is. Silly, silly things. Last year, okay, around my birthday, husband was out of town, and he left me his vehicle and he took my vehicle. As soon as Mercury retrograde hit, the truck wouldn't start. And I was like, you've got to be effing kidding me, right? Right before I got to go to work. So I'm FaceTiming and what do I got to do? And, this monster truck, I had to open it. It looked like the freaking transformer, just this huge ass thing just came up when I popped the hood. And having to go through tools and popping the fuse box and looking at this fuse and taking it out and making sure all these crazy things. And then it ended up working. I was like, oh, thank God. The next day, shit you not, I am rolling out, right? Leaving my driveway. And I was like, what the hell? Check my side mirror, fucking flat ass tire, bro. Not just like down to the rim. Are you shitting me right now? Thankfully, a friend of mine that I work with lives, not too far away. But I was like, what the actual F? Crazy. Waiting for the tow truck to come to the house so that way they can help me put a spare on. Insane. Insane. And I was like, wow, this is the hardest Mercury retrograde has ever freaking hit me. But in retrospect, all of those things were teaching me how to do things for myself, that I could do it. It was a shitty ass way to show me because I'm like, I don't want to be fucking late to work, but and quote unquote bothering a friend for a ride to work. But those were the things where I leaned on my friend, I leaned on my neighbor, and for someone like myself who's used to doing things on my own all the time, like I'll just do it, don't worry about it. I'm a little hermit, right? And shit, I don't know about you. So I got some trust issues. And I also don't like to be a bother. So all those little things during this retrograde around my birthday was, beknownst to me, the start of me learning how to do things for myself. And you're probably thinking, gorgeous soul, that, okay, so you learned how to do a fuse, call the tow truck. That's not that hard. I had to take it to, get the tire replaced and, mm, whatever. But those little things, I was like, as independent as I am, and things like that, they don't scare me, but like, stressed out. I don't know that much about cars or trucks. This particular truck, it's not my vehicle. But being able to call and ask questions and the correct questions and taking my time, that was the lesson. Taking my time. And when I did that, other doors were opening. And at the time, I didn't know what the universe had it planned for me, right? Of course, we don't know. But there were some doors where the universe was like, all right, come on, let's go. And I was like, you're fucking joking, right? I'm not going through that door. That's not what I meant. So when you're manifesting things and you're setting your intention, the way you phrase things, oh, friends, you gotta put that in, I mean, specific as you can be, because sometimes it'll just rock your world. You just don't know it. Okay. So that's my Mercury retrograde little story. The thing is yes, it might be stressful. Yes, maybe this time, it's not feasible for you to slow down. But we also want to notice how we are reacting in this retrograde. Okay, we want to see all the re's here, we want to be able to reset and revise and really take into account what's happening around us. Mercury retrograde isn't the end all be all, right? Like, oh my gosh, it's retrograde. I can't believe it. All these things are gonna go, terrible. No. Mercury retrograde again can be frustrating, but sometimes we need to revisit a plan. Maybe we need to redesign them. Maybe it's a time to reassess. Mercury retrograde can be very, very useful. It allows us to stop, to listen. Because the worst thing is that when someone's speaking to you, you're already figuring out the response, right? You're not really listening. This is a good time to listen. And hey, what if that ex does come around? This is a good time to find your closure and know that, yeah, this is probably a little quiz, a little universe quiz, but you've got this. We don't want to close a door if you needed that closure and just say what needs to be said, but do so slowly, especially because we're in Aries. We want to we want to slow it down. So I know we've already started, but if you feel that doing, having to be redirected in the middle of something is a little too stressful. Maybe you can look ahead at the next retrograde period that I gave to you and try to do what you can before that period hits. That way you're a little bit more prepared. So if your check engine light has been on for a while, maybe we go and get that looked at, before the retrograde hits. I'm telling you. Not that I had any warning, mind you, okay? But if anything needs repair, maybe do so before you go into Mercury retrograde. So again, you want to hit all the re's, as I've been saying. Redo, repair, repeat, reassess, maybe redesign, revisit. Okay? Reach out to someone who can really help you. And don't assume that everything's going to go wrong during the Mercury retrograde. Like I said, sometimes things will work out in your favor. Beautiful things can happen when we slow down. You never know what downloads you may be missing if you're constantly busy and go, go, go. And, you've always done things this way, and then that's it. That's just how things are now. I mean, I guess. But what happens when you delegate something to someone else or ask for help, right? Now let's talk about the solar eclipse. Or let's just talk about eclipses really, really quickly. Actually, I don't know how quickly it's going to go because I'm looking at my notes here. That way I stay on topic. So a little background with eclipses. Humans used eclipses to avoid accountability. Just like Mercury retrograde, just like saying, oh, you're just such a Leo. Okay. Over time, eclipses were synonymous with wars and death, chaos. And eclipses were used to control others, especially around ancient times, where sacrifices were made. Because, I mean, heck, they didn't know, why the hell is the sun being blocked out? You know what I mean? This was a time where people would really double down on their loyalty to either kings or priests. And a lot of it was fear. All of it was fear, right? A long history of that. And as we know, and as I stated before, we'll talk about this in later episodes to come, but that religious trauma, just fear mongering. It also corresponds to the patriarchy, right? These eclipses, either lunar or solar, were thought of as malefic. But not all regions associate eclipses with evil. So in different cultures and different religions, I have here Tibetan Buddhists believe activities performed are greatly amplified and emphasized healing and supportive practices for yourself and for others. They might even have a different or amplified flavor during depending on the planet, not necessarily, Mercury, going retrograde or reversed. So these things are just different, right? So let's take the tarot, for example. Let me see what I got here. I have my tarot deck right here. So let's say, okay. The King of Swords, right? So in tarot, when we're reading and divining these cards, normally the card that is upright has a different meaning than when it's reversed. So if we have the King of Swords here, sitting proudly on a throne, you see birds in the background holding onto a sword. Very, very stern. So in this card, I see this king as going forward more with the logic than the emotion, right? And if we were to see this king in reverse, maybe being totally, instead of empathetic, they have nothing but apathy. And they're very sharp and hurtful with their words instead of helping. So eclipses can be seen as such, just like retrogrades, right? You can always say that it's going to be evil and bad, but there's good in there too. I mean, it's just how you look at it. I also have eclipses can be a time of breakthroughs. Work with it, not against it. Paying close attention to your thoughts and emotions and your energy. So you're right in the middle of eclipse season. Literally, we are right in the middle. So what is coming up for you? How do you feel physically, emotionally, intuitively? Are any external events happening right now? This could be a good time for emotional healing, maybe some shadow work. If you don't know what that means, don't worry. I'll go over all these things. But now would be a good time to start tracking what happens and how you feel during an eclipse. How about your big three? Your sun, your moon, and your rising. Is your moon sign in Aries? You may be feeling differently than maybe if someone doesn't have Aries in their big three, or different from someone who has an Aries sun, because the moon rules your emotions. Eclipse season intensifies things that are already present. They're all about the shadows and how shadows will be shown. But you can make this work for you by recognizing and acknowledging your needs. Even if it's painful, right? Even if it's like a grief that you're holding on to. This energy can really provide deep and rich insights. In the eclipse, you see past, present, and future all woven together in your eclipse. And you see all the phases, all the moon phases during an eclipse. Isn't that crazy? How beautiful is that? Now, on the magic side, traditionally, the advice that goes around is not to practice any spell work, not to do any magic or do anything really during an eclipse itself, during when it is happening, just to sit and relax and just take note of how you're feeling, what comes up for you. And by all means, that is totally valid. But that is going to be your choice. And if you're feeling great and you feel inclined to do some spell work, to do some divination, to work with this energy, go for it. This is your craft. But know that this eclipse is happening during a Mercury retrograde. So, as I said in the previous episode, if you haven't listened to it, have you set your foundations? Because before you work with this eclipse energy mixed with Mercury retrograde, this is when you need to make sure you know how to ground, how to cleanse, how to work, like do all of the basic fundamental things so that way you're safe and your spell work is safe and it can thrive. Now, you don't have to go, I mean, if you want to, go balls to the wall, but just knowing as simple as making eclipse moon water, whenever you're going to use such water, understand that that energy is going to maybe be a little ungrounded, be a little chaos. Be ready for it because that is some fiery energy in that moon water, whatever it is you're going to use it for. I mean, I like to use it in case I gotta throw people in the freezer. You know what I mean? Freezer spells are really easy spells, I feel. And if I'm feeling a little spicy, I'll throw some eclipse moon water in there. So this is seen as a doorway for significant life changes, offering opportunities. But again, reset, rethink, start fresh. The blocking of the sun as a symbol of light and clarity invites introspection and encourages you to look inward. The sun shows outward, right? Your sun sign. Look at me. This is how I project myself. This is what we see. But when it's covering, when the moon begins to cover the sun, or what? Okay, Mercury retrograde, bleh. When we see the blocking of the sun, that is where you are really looking inward. Maybe this is a time where you reassess your path. Are you at the crossroads? Not saying that right now, you make that decision, go left or right or straight. But, have I not looked at this from a different angle? What is different? Is there anything different? This gives us a change we may need to move forward. Maybe even shock you out of it, right? It's like, damn, sometimes I be doing some reading sometimes and some Reiki energy sessions, and your guys be like almost wanting to smack you. It's like, how many times do we have to give you those angel numbers? Well, it's difficult. It really is. Especially if your guides are sending you all kinds of synchronicities, and you're just like, what does that mean? That's why you have to communicate. Remember that words create worlds. So your thought directs the energy. Let go. I know. I love to control things too. I need to know what's going to happen next, but sometimes we have to loosen the grip a little bit, getting a little white knuckle there, trying to hold on to things. But again, with this Mercury retrograde happening in the eclipse, this is a time to do all the re's, like I said. Use your intuition. Discern the truth from the illusion. Shoot, this might be the kick in the ass some of y'all need. Shoot, I know I might need it. Baby steps, little things. But Susie, I can't sit. I can't sit still. I don't know what it means to rest. You know what? I hear you. I totally hear you. And this is where I'm going to plug in my free master energy session. If you follow me on Instagram or on TikTok, and I'm at Susie's Enchanted Crossroads, I posted, this is a time where you prioritize your peace. And I put a poll out there asking how many of you actually can rest without feeling guilty? And boy, majority of us cannot. Of course not. We are being fed a hustle culture. And depending on your background, maybe it was seen as laziness if you were just sitting and watching TV and not doing something, right? And I'm not talking about, oh, you're procrastinating. It's just when all the dishes are washed and the clothes are folded, house is spotless, to-do list, everything is checked off, and you find a moment to sit and relax, you have a hard time doing so. And this is a great time to think of why. So I have my master energy session coming up April 13th. It's on a Saturday. I encourage you to sign up. It's free. I am I am putting together a community where we can gather virtually, free of judgment, healing the sister wound, being there for each other, having that support, and then I'm guiding you through some guided meditation and seeing where we have these blockages of you can't rest or you can't find peace, brain is moving 1,000 miles an hour, whatever you're needing. So I really do invite you. I'll link it in the show notes below, but also you can find it on my Instagram. Just click on my link tree. Everything is there. It's the Phoenix Rising. So, especially with everything that's going on in the world, I feel like we just get bogged down over and over and over again, and we have to rise from the ashes. It is our time. Okay, I pretty much covered everything in the amount of time I wanted to cover it in. I just don't want you out there to feel you should be scared of these events. Absolutely not. Take caution, take rest, take notice. I know you deserve to rest. I know it, hands down. I know you work hard. You work hard and you put in the hours. I know you may be mentally or physically, maybe emotionally drained. What is coming up for you during this eclipse season? Because we're closing it out April 8th. So what after that, what are you doing and feeling during this Mercury retrograde? Because it's until what I say, April 25th. So this is like our big red sign to take a deep breath. Hey, maybe you, if you have something really important coming up and you're like, what's up, Mercury? I understand that, you're taking a nap or whatnot and you're straight chilling, but I'm gonna light this blue or white candle for you, or I'm gonna leave this water out. If you could have things just flow smoothly for me during this retrograde period, I would surely appreciate it. You can leave offerings for Mercury, especially if you're gonna need it. If you're listening to this and you're like, fuck, damn it, I have something coming up for during this Mercury retrograde. What can I do? Well, I mean, besides doing all the re's, like I said, we can't obviously um stop life. That's just not what we can do, right? Maybe leave an offering. Like I said, it's as simple as just like a glass of water, just like we would do for a guide, which we'll go over. You can even dedicate your Wednesday, maybe on Wednesday. How about this? How about every Wednesday? Because Wednesday's Mercury Day, right? Planetary magic. Maybe on Wednesdays, you you can either refresh or give the offerings. Maybe write him a little note. I had read somewhere that since he is like, the god, yes, he does dabble in trickery. I had oh, I should have looked it up. I don't know if I saw it in a video or I read it somewhere, but to write or say out loud like a white lie or something, you know, obviously that isn't truthful or like a little trickery. Like right now, I'm drinking iced coffee, so I can say my offering right now is my little trick is this isn't iced coffee. This is Sprite. You know, offering that to Mercury. Heck, you just try it. Just what could it hurt, right? Um, but you can leave things you know, like I said, like a green, any items like green. I know that that's the color, but you can even just leave a little green candle and just say, "Hey, can you look out for me during the retrograde?" Would really appreciate it. So, just some just some little things here. You know what I mean? Just little things here and there. All right. So, as always, thank you for listening. I love you all out there listening, and I love to hear from you. Here on the show notes, there's a link if you have an idea for a topic, something you would love to hear about, or maybe if you have a question, send it to me there. If you check out my socials, you can also drop me a message or, hey, I would love to hear more about this or have a question about that because I love reading those. Like I got some for the eclipse and for Mercury retrograde, like I said. And I was like, bet I'm going to talk about this on the podcast. So bring them in, shoot me an email. And if anything, sign up for my free master energy session. It's free, it's virtual. Um, if you can't make it live, don't even sweat it. You'll have access to the recording for a week. So it's a win-win, right? Especially like, hey, you never know during this Mercury retrograde season. I didn't plan it that way because I didn't look it up, but I'm going to make sure everything's running really smoothly. I would love if you would leave me a review or a comment if you're listening to me on Spotify. All these little things help push the podcast so I reach more listeners, and that's the point. I really want to help guide you through these crossroads. I want to help you through your journey, right? I love taking deeper looks into the craft and spirituality. All right, lovely listeners, have a great rest of your week. Be safe, reset, rest, and until then, I'll see you at the crossroads.